Woo. And who's announcing?
It's been announced.
I just did.
Okay. Well, I hit the button.
We'll
Okay.
do it again.
We're
We're live.
live. Okay. John, do you want to kick off or do you want me to kick off?
Oh, it's all you, Ego. Although you just passed the mic to me, I never refuse a microphone.
Okay.
So welcome, everybody, to our Success Mastermind for Wednesday, the 9th of September, 2020. John Lavenia here with all of you and with Ego, who's got the controls today. I am just a student here. I'm just a participant, and I'm excited to be that as well. We got a huge day today. As you may already know, if you're a full member, you certainly do know. We do have, of course, our hospitality suite that's open all the time. But today at 6 p.m. Eastern U.S. time, we do have Life and Business Tools with Adrian and Ego, who's hosting today. We do have a kids corner at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, and that may be moving to a different time slot, possibly weekends. And then at 9 p.m. Eastern, we're going to end our day with Networking Magic with Mr. Reverend Professor Glenn Henderson. So very excited about that. Big day. Back to you, Ego.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. And for those who are watching the recording, welcome. Welcome to John Lavenia's Success Mastermind, as he said, Wednesday, 9th of September, 2020. So it's an honor, actually, once again, to facilitate today's session. You know, I never take it lightly. You know, I learn and I grow from it, as well as from a contribution from everybody else. So firstly, I'd like to say it was really profound that Wayne yesterday talked about the power of our language. They basically make or break us. And then looking back at last week, John ended last week sharing with us the 3 things that will guarantee our success, be it in business, at work, at home, with our friends, and so on. Firstly, consistency. Then he talked about intensity. And lastly, diversity. We actually heard amazing testimonials of this principle at work in the lives of many in this community. And I actually believe, myself included, there'd be many more to come. So that said, something that's almost always a constant companion, sometimes more present, other times less, that can get in the way of our bid for success and being consistent, intense, and diverse in our approach is our inner critic. So today, I'd like to talk about silencing our inner critic. I'm sure a lot of people can kind of identify with the fact that we have an inner critic. So we all have 2 different voices within us. One that's nurturing and it's critical, you know, one that's critical. There's one that lifts us up, and then the other weighs us down, just like our words. But these 2 voices have a role to play. So our inner critic, I would say the nurturer brings, you know, like self-compassion, encouragement, whilst the critic, on the other hand, you know, it helps us recognize where we believe we've gone wrong in doing something or what we need to do to set things right. So, you know, for some people, this inner critic actually goes overboard, way overboard, shaming us, nitpicking, fault finding. It's big, it's powerful, whilst the other, it's small, it's ineffective, not necessarily, you know, the nurturer is more, we allow, or I would say the critic actually overpowers the nurturing voice within us. So usually that inner critic doesn't really serve us well. It has a nature of really sabotaging our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions as well. So that actually reminds me of a quote by Gandhi. And, you know, we've heard this several times in this community, where it says that our beliefs become our thoughts become our words become our actions, and our actions become our habits, and so on, right? So our inner critic would tell us that we're far from being the typical founder or entrepreneur or CEO that succeeds in whatever area, we choose, fill in the blanks. So, that same voice would tell us, you could have done so much better. Why did you give up so easily? Of course, it's because you fail at everything you do. And that's actually very, similar to, if we remember the story from the book study on Monday, where the miner in Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill gave up 3 feet before striking gold. So the inner critic for some people is an enemy that provides so much criticism that we begin to, experience low self-esteem or self-doubt, even in areas where we are experts, right? So I'll give an example, just using myself as an example. In my work, I often present to C-level execs or even global leaders. So one time, a few years ago, I had to speak at the World Economic Forum. I actually was fine with that because it was my area of expertise. But what I had an issue with was the fact that I was supposed to be on a panel with Gordon and Sarah Brown. So for those in the UK, or those who don't know, for those who don't know really, the UK folks know who Gordon Brown is. He was the Chancellor of the Exchequer. He was the leader of the Labour Party, and he was a one-time Prime Minister in the UK, right? So my inner critic said to me, you will make such a mess of this. What value could you add? This guy is an ex-Prime Minister, right? And, we know we are what we think, remember? So I was feeling down. I felt so sick to my stomach with fear and self-doubt. But somehow, I didn't have a choice. As soon as I finished the speaking, we then moved on. We had a very short break and moved on to the panel. So I somehow pulled myself together, and it ended up being a really great session. And, when I think back, I just wonder, why was I so afraid? Why was I intimidated? There was a reason why I was on that panel anyway. There was a reason why I was at that event in the first place. But there's the other voice is a friend, and it kind of pushes us to become better. It gives us gentle reminders to get back on track with the goals that we, to achieve the goals that we set for ourselves. So after that feeling from the example that I gave, I made a conscious choice never to doubt myself or be too critical. So what if I messed up the presentation? So what if I didn't know an answer to a question? I put it down to many factors other than I'm not good enough. Instead, I would say, I would try, not try, because that's I need to change that language. Instead, I would figure out where I could do better and then just act on it rather than, sit there and feel sorry for myself. So, on this point, I would say action is key, right? And, from the quote earlier, Gandhi's quote, our actions really then become our habits, right? So how do we make that inner critic our friend so as to ensure we achieve the endless successes in the many areas of our lives? There are a number of points I want to go through, and then I'll we'll kind of discuss it in detail. So the first thing that came to mind, or I thought about, was we have to be mindful about our thoughts. We have to be intentional. I mean, this is language that we hear all the time. We have to be mindful of our thoughts. And if we think about a saying of, Henry Ford, and it's been shared in this group as well, whether we think we can or we can't. Either way, we are right. So it's really our choice, right? So to create change, we then need to become aware of our thoughts and actually how they affect us. So another way I would say is to stop ourselves when we notice this behavior. It's like, in the meditation session, yesterday it was, in the meditation session, one of the things, I really did enjoy it, led by Nicola, but one of the things that really stuck with me was our thoughts float by us, but we don't necessarily have to attach ourselves to it. So as soon as we become aware of that thought, we take notice of that. So now that we're aware of this negative thought pattern, we can stop these thoughts in their tracks. And then when it surfaces, we challenge it, in many ways. There's so many ways we can do that. And then the next, it kind of leads me on to the next one, which is we replace our negative thoughts with positive thoughts. So once we've managed to isolate and block out the inner critic, we then need to replace the noise with positive thoughts. I think it was in one of Stuart's sessions. You talked about the mental diet, and something I remember Adrian saying was they have a family tradition of replacing one negative thought with two positive ones. And I thought that's actually a really good way of silencing that inner critic. The other then would be practice and repeat. And if you must, I would say go on the mental diet. I just mentioned that earlier. Stuart actually talked about this last week, where we're very conscious of our of our negative thoughts, and we challenge it or we just don't entertain it, basically. So the most important thing I would say to remember here about silencing that inner critic is that it is a process, though, just like any other behavioral change that we have to make in our lives. And then we build a positive substitute to make a habit of it, right? So one of the other things I would say is key is by surrounding ourselves with people who inspire us. I mean, what better place to be inspired than this group, right? I would say we're actually in the right place. We're in the right place at the right time, right here in the JL Success Mastermind. And I would say every member of this community has been a great source of inspiration, motivation, encouragement, strength, growth, knowledge, wisdom, I would say is actually right here. And when we're in the place of giving and receiving of all these many gifts and qualities, it's difficult to actually entertain and believe, believe that inner critic. Not to say it doesn't happen. It does happen. However, our mindset, what we choose that mindset that says these thoughts come, the criticisms come. However, I will overcome them by replacing them with, like the positive thoughts, and even just, like presenting or facilitating in this group. I'm not an expert. John says it all the time. We're here to kind of feed off each other and, kind of learn from each other and grow. So it could be daunting. There's so many smart, wise, experienced people. It could be daunting to actually then say, oh, I'm facilitating a session today to all these amazing people. But, with everything that I've learned in this group, I know that if I fall, I stand up, and everyone helps me stand up. There's no judgment, there's no criticism. So if I'm not getting it from externally, then why should I entertain it internally? So I'll close with a quote by Lisa Nichols in The Secret, where she said, you are the designer of your destiny. You are the author. You write the story. The pen is in your hand, and the outcome is whatever you choose. Thanks for listening. The floor is open. Wow, 99. Okay. So I see Carlene's hand up, and then we have Star.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Wonderful session, Ego. Absolutely amazing as usual. I put my hand up because I said I usually have nursery runs, so I usually can't stay till the end of all the sessions anymore. And I want to get in here quickly, say what I have to say, and just be part of the group. But what you did speak about in terms of like the inner critic, it's so important because we think that because we get older, we should be able to like bounce back easier from all these negative things that we hear or tell ourselves, but it actually becomes harder because for some reason, it becomes more ingrained. So if you've been hearing negative things for like say 10, 15, 20 years, it's harder to unlearn all those self-defeating like words and thoughts, and it's easier to gravitate towards the negative because, for example, you can have 10 persons would say to you, oh, Ego, that's a lovely orange top. But one person's going to say, oh, that color does nothing for you, sweetie. And you're going to remember that negative like word, the negative feedback. It's easier. It stays there longer. You'd be lying at night and thinking, did it really not look good on me? Even though 9 persons told you it looked amazing. The one negative feedback tends to sting and lingers a bit longer for some reason. And when we start practicing like self-love, as you said, being part of this group, when we start practicing all these affirming messages and start treating ourselves differently, then those things don't stick anymore. And I've noticed that. I've noticed that even when we have bad days, I tend to bounce back better from my bad days because I'm part of this group. And it's like, I'm thinking, hang on a second, why was I not able to handle these things before? But I mean, whatever the reason for it, it's just a matter of now we realizing what I can put words to certain things. So before I didn't know the word self-defeating mentality or certain terminologies, I didn't have a word for it. I just knew I didn't like it. I knew it made me feel a certain type of way, but I couldn't name it. So like when Wayne did his session yesterday, he was able to name things that we were doing. And I'm like, wow, you never looked at it that way before. So now that you're able to identify it, now that we can be more intentional, now it's starting to be like a puzzle fitting together. So I can spot things and be like, oh, nope, I'm not having that one. I'm getting rid of this. I'm going to choose this one instead. And I'm actually picking more positive fruit and building on that. So that way I can become stronger as an individual. And I'm going to leave with this because we're all maybe getting into the whole e-commerce world. In the e-commerce world, you're going to run up against trolls. You're going to run up against people who are just going to be nasty for no reason. Sometimes it's just because they're having a nasty day or they're just a nasty person in general. And if you're not able to understand how to build a shield around your feelings and your emotion, you're going to feed off that negative energy. And we have to protect our energy because if you want to sell or you want to be out there and start putting your own products out into the marketplace, you have to take the criticism. Some of it's not going to be fair, but you have to be able to understand that this is the world we're in. This is the world that no matter how great this group is, the real world is an ugly place sometimes. And if you don't arm yourselves with all these information and all the tools to help you be ready for any assault from whatever, it can even be your family, friends, strangers. If you're not ready to arm yourself with this mindset group, you're not going to be able to withstand some of the things that are thrown your way. So thank you for everyone being amazing. You guys are awesome. And I'm going to pass it on to the next person.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome, Carlene. You actually touched on quite a few points there. So one of the things I wanted to pick up was self-love, and I totally agree. You know, we need to you know, love ourselves, and it kind of reminds me of a scripture that says, "Perfect love casts out fear." Fear is negative. Love is positive. Right? So there's that. And then the other point was around criticism. So the real world is a harsh place. We all know that. But then we choose. It's a choice, right? So we have to choose what we do with that information, right? You know, the positive comes, the negative comes, and then we choose whether we process it or not. I think this was even talked about yesterday about words, right? When the you know, criticism comes, the negative words come, that's them, not us. Sometimes people are projecting their inadequacies, their inefficiencies, or they're afraid of your success. So, you know, people try to use words to pull you down. However, it's a choice that we make, how we use or process the you know, those words or criticism. So thank you for that. Thanks, Carlene. Okay, we have Star.
Hi, everybody. Lower hand.
Hi.
Carlene, that was just amazing. You've got heaps of calls in the chat for you to be a coach.
I agree.
That was really powerful. And yeah, that was amazing. Thank you. And Ego as well. So impressed by your resume. It's, that would have been daunting to anybody. And yeah, we're lucky to have you here. And thank you for bringing this fabulous topic in that fabulous shirt. Firstly, I'll just talk to what the topic is, and then afterwards I just have to give a little update on my mind diet. What's it called, Stuart? Mindset diet. So in terms of the topic, and in terms of, you were saying self-doubt caused by negative self-talk and putting yourself down. Now, I have always had an issue with the fact that I'm really sensitive to other people's vibes. Since I was a small child, I've always been very sensitive to other people's vibes. And as I grew older, it'd be one of those things people go, "Oh, shut up, you're just paranoid." And I'd be like, "I swear they're thinking that, or they don't like me, or they're this, or they're that." And I sort of learned to sort of be a bit tougher. And then going into the world of work, you know, I would get a vibe. In the freelance world, I used to work in freelance film and television, working with different people every day in strange settings and all. And, you know, your relationships are very important, and you get the vibes if someone's on. And people are like, "No, you're just being paranoid. They're not like that." And more often than not, my instincts were right about these things. And it was a really difficult thing for me to sort of, in my early 20s, to balance out the listening to my own instincts and also not allowing the negative self-talk. But the negative self-talk was often linked to reality, because I felt like I was a bloody antenna and I could just feel what other people were directing to me. I mean, my sister, she was like, it was quite funny because I'm a Scorpio with a Pisces moon. So I'm pretty sensitive. And my sister is a Leo, and, you know, she'd be like, "How come you've always got beef with people?" And it's like, it's not that. It's just, my sister would walk into a room and there'd be 6 people there all giving her daggers, and she wouldn't even notice, because she's so self-obsessed or absorbed or blinkered, or however you liked. Yeah. And I would walk into a room, and I still can walk into a room now, and I can clock all the vibes that are coming to me. And it's a tricky one, you know, and you do have to, it mingles with that negative self-talk. But in terms of the actual negative self-talk that I give myself, I'm quite good at overriding that and forcing myself into dangerous and difficult situations without like override the safety mechanism. Like, yes, I will get in that helicopter. Yes, I will fly on that plane on my own and go and work in a different country, get up the next day, not knowing anybody. You know, I can do all of that sort of stuff, but the negative vibes from other people really affect me. And it's taken me quite a long time. And I still sometimes, you know, it upsets me. I'm like, why do they feel like that? You know, I'm a nice person. But often, you know, there's many reasons that people feel negatively towards you. And that, yeah, I have learned to trust my instincts though, and duck out of situations or avoid people that are directing that focus at me. But sometimes you have to fight them as well. Sometimes you have to be like, I am standing my ground and screw you, this is what's happening. But then on another front, with my fabulous mental, what's it called? Positive mental diet, is that what it was? Was that? So you'll all be very happy to hear that I went and viewed the house that I wanted yesterday, and I got the house that I wanted, found out today. But I've been like on such a, I will be positive, I will be positive, I will be positive, like days. And then weirdly on Monday, which was the day before the end of my positive diet, one of my best friends started giving me Aggie aggression. Like, we're so close, we're like sisters. And she has a tendency to, when she's feeling down, to dump on me like you would a sibling. You know, that's kind of, and so there she was. I've actually had to like distance myself from her for the last few days. And I haven't even told her today about my happiness, because she is on such a downer that everything that she said to me the last 3 days has been, this is bad, that's a bad, you know, and to do with my projects, to do with all this, you know, she's been really supportive up until now of everything that I'm doing with Blue Sky, with John Lavenia, with all of you lovely people. And then on Monday, she started nitpicking and picking it to pieces. And I was just like, okay, so something's going on for you then. And I have been able to, but like I said, it does play with my mind, you know. She's one of my best friends. And so I didn't sleep very well last night. I was up at 2 a.m. and I was like promoting my t-shirt shop on Instagram in bed, because I couldn't sleep. But yeah, and today I'm in a bit of a daze because I haven't really slept well, but I got the house, the positivity works, Elvie's really happy at her new school, everything's feeling like it's falling into place, and you just have to swerve those negative, swerve them, even if you love them, swerve them.
Totally, I agree.
And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much. Okay, so moving on to EVA.
Hello, everybody. Well done, Ego.
Thank you.
But I mean, I didn't expect anything less. Come on. I mean, you just got it. Smashing it every time.
Thank you.
Star, Carlene, love you, ladies. Love you, love you, love you. Powerful, powerful words. There are two things that I say. One, I don't fear anybody that I meet, because everybody goes to the bathroom. And as far as I know, when they go, it still stinks. So as long as that holds true, I'm not going to be afraid of anybody. I will talk to anybody. I will walk up to them, be it good news, bad news, or in between. I'll deliver what I have to do. I will respect their position, even if I do not like the person. So they will have the due respect. But I don't have to be bestest mates with them. You know, so I kind of like draw the boundaries. If it's a business transaction, then it's a business connection. If it's family, I can't choose them. I'm stuck with them. So I'll make the best that I can with them. If it's friends, they're friends for different seasons. Very rarely do you have more than a handful that will do the entire life's journey with you. So I'm constantly aware of when those seasons change and when those friends go and new ones come in. But through those seasons, there are friends that I can say I have had from when I was yay high, and they're still there now. And I can pick up the phone, even if we haven't spoken in God knows how long, and it's like no time has passed, because we can just pick it up like that. And to you, Star, I mean, there are people, when they start their negative stuff, I just go, I hear you. What do you need from me? How can I support you? But I don't take the negative energy on. I pray for them. I send them lovely messages to encourage them, even if I know they're not in the headspace to receive it. I carry on being my positive self. But then, like you, I don't spend too much time. I wouldn't invest valuable time with them unless I knew there were other people that could deflect some of that negative energy. So I mean, I'm sure I shared a few months back, there's a friend of mine that was really in a bad headspace. I mean, she was depressed and everything else and was getting anxiety attacks and blah, blah, blah. And I just said, look, girlfriend, I'm here for you if you want to talk. But even before I would talk to her, whether it was WhatsApp or a phone call, I would psych myself up. So if I had to listen to, you know, podcasts or read a chapter of a book or talk to myself looking in the mirror, I'd do whatever I needed to do to make sure that my guard was up and that nothing she was going to say was going to get through my 2 ears and stay there. And if I found myself repeating any of whatever she'd shared, the broom comes out, the vacuum cleaner comes out, and that's it. It's out the door before it even has time to take root. So I'm really, like, you know, mega conscious about my mental state, you know, where I am. So that's kind of like what I say. And then if they're not good friends, quite frankly, that's fine. They can work through their issues, and when they're ready, we can talk again. That's just an acquaintance. It's not going to make a difference in my life. But people who don't like me, like you, I can tell, like first few seconds, I can tell. And what I say to myself is, you know what? That's your problem. You've lost out because you don't know what a good friend I'll be. I will stick closer than a brother when the time comes. I mean, I will follow you to wherever. I will give you the shirt on my back. But if you can't see the value and you don't appreciate, tough luck. Your loss, not mine. Moving on. And I go find somebody else who's willing to share my space with me or have a sensible conversation with me. You know, life is so short. You can't worry about the people who don't see the value you bring to the party. That's really their loss. You know, you really just have to be intentional about, it's my time, it's my energy, it's my future. Who do I want to carry along with me? And that's why what we have here is so special, because, you know, everybody here is on your side. There's nobody here that is not wishing you well. And so to have, 51 other people, we're 52 in total on the call, that's more than people will have their entire lives. So if somebody out there isn't rooting for me, I go, you know what? I know where my peeps are at. I don't need number 52. I've already got 51 behind me, or however many it is. And I'm already rich for it. So, you know, that's it.
I think that's so true. Very profound. A few things I want to pick quickly before I move on to the next person. I actually agree, and I love the fact that regardless of how people feel about us, we respect them for who they are. And that's integrity. As we know, integrity is everything, right? So regardless, we respect them. And then also, you know, like, people come into our lives for a reason and a season. So, you know, those toxic relationships or behaviors don't really need to stick, just like our negative thoughts. You know, you just kind of let it float by. If people make an issue of something, you know, you just kind of let them sail by. You know, I had a situation where a friend of mine, I call her an ex-friend, who was upset that I did not tell her on the day I received some bad news. And I thought, you know what, you have issues, I don't, I just let it slide. So, and then lastly, that fortification. So yes, there's some people you can't avoid who would, you know, try and project their negativity on you. But I like the idea of fortifying yourself. So either through, you know, the word or a book or music or words of encouragement. And then, you know, out of the abundance of your heart, by what you fed yourself, your mouth then speaks, and then it kind of, it dilutes that negativity. And instead of them projecting on you, it's the other way around. They find themselves speaking your language rather than the other way around. Thanks, Evie. Always wise words. Okay, Mandy, and then we'll go to Stuart.
Hi, Ego.
Hi, Mandy.
How do you follow EVA? I'll do my best. I would love to be as confident as EVA is. Unfortunately, I'm not, but I'm working on it. I think this is a brilliant topic, and I've probably got a whole bookshelf on this topic, to be honest, for the last years and years. Just stay with Star. I also sense other people's vibes as well, but I have learned that it's probably their issue with you as a person and not necessarily anything you've done. And I've learned to recognize that and just not change myself just because somebody else is not necessarily liking who I am. However, when you have a childhood, and I'm not necessarily, my parents never really said anything negative to me, so I have tried to work out where it came from, but I think it's more that they never said anything positive. So you didn't have any positive vibes coming towards you, so you tended to build up the negative ones when you did get them, and therefore your inner critic just became bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it led to becoming a limited belief. And so that limited belief then carries on. So it's not always easy to get rid of it as we would like to think it is, even though the three things you said I think are brilliant. They are really, really good ways of doing it. One of the things I heard recently was the RAS, the reticular activating system, and the power of consistency. I never heard it said that way, when it says that it doesn't care whether you're right or wrong. It just has to prove that what you're thinking is right. Therefore, what you do is you go away. So if you think that you're telling yourself you're stupid or that you're not good enough or anything else, it goes away and proves it for you. So it never goes and finds the things it needs to find to prove the opposite. And like the way you said that, I just thought that was absolutely brilliant. I really do love that part. So that is something really important. But for anybody, again, I've mentioned these before, but anybody who is struggling out there with these, some of the things I did find that were really good was Susan Jeffers, but Richard Carlson, Stop Thinking and Start Living. He goes through all of this and he's really, really good. And then I said the tapping again. So when you were nervous, and it's really, it's not good, but to hear that you are nervous as well gives us some hope as well, that because you're nervous, we can be. And you just get through it. And I think it's just nice to know that we're all human beings here. But the tapping solution, or tapping, is what I would do before I went into that situation, if I was ever in that situation. And I really do say, just go and have a look at the Tapping Solution app, because it can really help you change your mindset if you can get over what you're doing. But yeah, it really is brilliant. And so I just hope that's been some help.
Yes, thank you. Thanks a lot, Mandy. Thank you for your insight. Okay, Stuart.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Ego. Great job today. Really, really great job today. I love this topic. It all relates to self-image and inner dialogue and how we deal with being our own worst enemy and things like that. I wanted to mention a couple of things. You mentioned being a facilitator, right? And I've been thinking about that recently and what that means for those of us that are doing that. And, I tend to look at words, right? Like John, says, if you don't know, look it up. So of course I know Spanish, and fácil in Spanish is easy, right? So I'm like, facilitator must be somebody who makes things easy for people. So I looked it up. Facilis is the Latin root, and it's about making something easier, making difficult things easier. So two things I got to say: you make presenting look easy. So you're an inspiration to me as another facilitator. But the topics that you present, you make it really accessible and approachable for people. So well done on that front. We're kind of talking about imposter syndrome again. I'll refer you guys to an awesome TED Talk by Mike Cannon-Brookes. I'll put it in the chat about how to use imposter syndrome to your benefit. I think it's such an interesting thing, because I think that it's part of human nature to have that inner critic. And maybe part of that is about self-evaluation and self-reflection. But I think there's sort of a twisted version of that we've all inherited due to social and cultural indoctrinations, the varying degrees of encouragement or discouragement that we may get as children, or feedback from society and culture, right? So I think that manifests in different ways for each of us. And I think, again, it's a reflection of our self-image, and the stronger our self-image is, then the less we entertain or consume those thoughts, right? And I'm like everybody else, man, all day long. I'm like, nope, don't want that one. Nope, don't want that one, right? And it's really this interesting process. And maybe you guys, you know, everybody's got different ways of dealing with these things. Often, and we talk about having a responsibility to be the vigilant guardians of the temples of our mind, right? And, you know, that means like it's a real deal standing guard and mindfulness about what we're thinking. And some of that is, let's say, domestic enemy, right? Meaning, you know, inside our own head. And some of that is you know, external, right? And we need to be able to deal with both of those things. I look at the external as Castaneda would have called the petty tyrant. And I'd love to do a session on that at some point. And I know somebody, I think it was Carlene, or maybe not Carlene, Carolyn yesterday mentioned 4 agreements and Toltec wisdom and things like that. So I'd love to chat about that on a certain day. But that concept of being the guardian at your mind. And I often envision myself, especially when I'm aware, which is probably dozens to hundreds of times a day. I mean, you know, for being honest, how many times do unwelcome thoughts try to enter our sphere, our sacred sphere, right?
1,000 times a day, isn't it?
Right? And I will often envision myself like the spiritual warrior, right? I want to do a session on this too with you guys, but this concept of like the sword of truth, that nothing, you know, that anything that comes at me, I just, you know, slice away, or the shield of protection, right? So I often do all these sort of physical things that maybe create mental hooks for me about, you know, pushing away things or dispelling things. Leah will often say to me, like, why are you shaking your head? Because I'll just be sitting there on it, like any given moment, like, and I'm like, no, I just thought something I didn't want to think, right? So there's this constant vigilance about this. I want to say, I treat that inner critic like a child, like a pesty little pest, like a little gnat, right? And whenever those little thoughts come, I just kind of like, get out of here, you loser, or whatever it is, right? And like, yeah, I don't want that. But it's almost with this humorous, you know, good-natured kind of understanding that that is a part of myself, right? And on the one hand, you know, we don't want to indulge and we don't want to be self-indulgent. And on the other hand, these are parts of ourselves that we need to embrace in whatever ways so that we can understand that they're just these pesky little voices that we try to trip ourselves up with. And if we see it as a challenge, then it's always kind of fun. It's like, oh, psh, get out of here. So anyway, thank you. Awesome topic today.
Thank you. So 2 things I wanted to touch on following what you said. So there's the evaluation that happens when, you know, the self-evaluation that happens within us. But I kind of also believe that that we need to balance the self-doubt with the arrogance, right? Because when I was faced with that situation, I mean, I was, you know, I was just kind of taken aback, just really hit the position. I mean, yes, he's human, and I was talking about my stuff, you know, what I was there to talk about. But I didn't, sometimes, you know, we have to ensure that there's a balance. Otherwise, I then tip over to the other way. I feel so overconfident and, well, not overconfident, but arrogant. And then I trip over myself. So I think we definitely need to find a balance. And then the other thing with, you know, you seeing that inner critic as a child, I think it's actually quite profound, because if we know the enemy that we're dealing with, then we can come up with the strategy to, you know, to actually fight, resist, challenge, right? So anyway, thanks for that. We have Habiba and then Edward.
All right, can you hear me? I love this group so much. Everything everybody has said, and I apologize. I'm often multitasking, doing mindless things while I'm listening, so I don't always make note of who said what. So I'm not going to reference too much of what each person has said, but everything that's being shared today is speaking to me at various levels. So there's a couple of things that are standing out for me personally that I have used in this arena that we're talking about. One is one that Stuart just mentioned, which is the 4 agreements. That was huge for me, especially when I was going through the process of divorce, because 2 of the factors there are not taking things personally and not making assumptions. And just those 2, in addition to the ones that are more responsible about doing my best and watching my own words, it's that place of pay attention to what I'm doing in my mind, because it all comes back to that. Mm-hmm. So the other work that comes up for me is the work that Byron Katie has put out there, and she has books for kids that are wonderful too. But one of the things that she leads with is asking the question, is that true? Is that true? Because our mind immediately, like I can think something about what I'm observing or what's happening in the moment. And whatever my thought is may or may not be actually what's happening, right? Because the mind has its filters and we have our emotions that play into it and everything else. So for me, that's a big one. It's like, okay, take a minute and pause, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? But take a moment and pause and ask, is that true? Or am I making an assumption? Or am I taking something personally? This happens with my kids all the time because my kids are so smart and they catch me on stuff all the time. And so there will be like, a moment where I'll say something and they'll, whatever, they'll counteract it. It's been a beautiful tool in my relationship with them because rather than us, if I ask them to do something and they come back to me with some logical reason why it can't be done in the moment, I actually take a moment and look at, okay, so is that true? And then we can have a logical discussion without getting into emotional friction, right? It has been wonderful in my parenting to be able to apply that with them and teach it to them as well. So anyway, I just wanted to offer that those are a couple of the tools that I use. It's because it's a daily, even as Star was saying, I tend to be very empathic. I pick up on that very subtle kinds of things. And I have to check, is that me or is that not me, right? Mm-hmm. If it's somebody else's stuff that they're throwing, I can put up that barrier and be, like, okay, that's yours, that's not mine. That's, whatever's going on in your head. And then what am I doing with what's going on in mine? Because that's really ultimately all I can control anyway. So.
Yeah, I love it. I love it, Habiba. I love, that the tool where you ask that question, is it true? Because when we really think about it, if a total stranger, so there's the internal versus the external voice, yeah. Right? If a total stranger walked up to me and said, you are worthless, I would disagree. I would say, you actually don't know me. What makes you say that? So it's interesting how we entertain that inner voice, and some cases we've nailed how to challenge it, but then we're good at kind of pushing back the external. So yeah, I like that. I should adopt that too. Okay, thank you, Habiba. So we move on to Edward and then Wayne.
Thank you, Ego. Great topic. I just feel like it was meant for me, Ego. And I've picked up quite a few lessons from what you said and what the other speakers have said. I thought I should say something as well. And I'm going to use myself again, not by way of bragging, but just to try and drive home a point. I have done quite some good jobs. I started my career after university as a junior banker. I went on and worked as an architectural designer, moved on, taught, worked as an accountant. I'm currently working as a business analyst. Now, I won't say what the other roles have involved. But I will quickly say that with business analysis, you work with organizations to help them improve the way they do things for efficiency, really. So you have the responsibility of working with senior management to try and know when a business needs change and assessing the impact of those changes to the business processes, obtaining and recording the necessary information that is going to help making those decisions, and of course maintaining communication between the stakeholders and whoever is implementing the change. And so I've ended up conducting workshops, visiting organizations, conducting interviews and all that kind of stuff. But every time I have been told you are going to organize a workshop on this, those self-doubting ideas, the imposter syndrome, Stuart, have come into my mind, and they've been so bad. I've struggled quite a lot, and I'm working on it. And I'm glad you have brought this up. Really, I'm working on it. But I just thought it's very, very significant the way, and you've said this, Ego, the way we tend to believe ourselves on the negatives when we wouldn't believe those negatives from outsiders or other people. And so I'm really glad. And Stuart, I'm going to pick a leaf from your book as well. I'm going to take this very lightly and kind of dismiss it. Somebody said angels fly because they take themselves lightly. So I'm going to try and pick that up, So I'm trying to use, some time ago, I read an article, and Ego, the things that you said that we need to follow were in that article. But there is one that I wanted to bring up, which I'm using. Examine the evidence. You did say there's a reason why you are being told to take the train and go to Edinburgh and conduct a workshop. There are other business analysts within the team. There is a reason why they are telling you to go to London and speak to director so and so. So the evidence should be talking, and you should be listening to that evidence rather than listening to that ugly inner voice of the self-criticism. So that's what I wanted to say. Thanks a lot, Stuart, for that link. I think I'm picking up quite a lot here. Thank you very much, Ego.
Thank you, Edward. And just we have to, I think one of the most important things to remember is about silencing this inner critic is that it's a process, right? And the first step in the process is actually identifying, being able to distinguish between what is real and what isn't real. So we know it's there, just like any other type of behavioral change. It's a process, and we have to start somewhere. So thank you for that, Edward. Let's see who's next. So we have Wayne and then Cyril. Over to you, Wayne.
Yeah, thanks, Ego. Wow, so much to think about and process here. So, what came up for me, what Carlene said it well, is that, all these things are a puzzle fitting together, and all the pieces form a bigger picture. And what always amazes me is that so many of the topics we talk about interrelate, and they talk back to each other and across each other as far as like a fabric being woven together. So many threads that are interwoven amongst each other. So a lot of times when these conversations are on, there's so many other pieces that come together. And just thinking back, I was speaking about limiting beliefs a while back, and just my own limiting beliefs, and a lot of those, the inner critic being the one that that actually convinced me of some of those things that became limiting beliefs. So, a lot of times there are external factors that guide our limiting beliefs, but a lot of times it's the inner critic that starts to create those limiting beliefs. So as those tie in, and then even with the language yesterday, things that I say to myself, what language am I using to myself? What's my inner critic saying? And just listening to some of those words and then helping yourself determine whether that is my inner critic or whether that is my creative self. And we can differentiate that way and listen to the things that we want to listen to. For me, some good examples about limiting beliefs are my inner critic. I said that I used to think my voice sounded horrible. This group has told me otherwise many, many times. And I used to have this thought that, people don't really care about what I say, or they're not interested in listening to what I have to say. Again, this group has shown me otherwise. And so one of the things I'd mentioned about limiting beliefs is letting our experience, or as Edward nicely put it, evidence, prove to us otherwise. So listening to that as well. So what is outside of us? And something that I came across, I just want to throw a little bit of a challenge out. I know there's been people talking about empath and being able to sense the room and so on. And I just wanted to throw something out there that maybe is a little bit contrary to that thought process. I totally believe in the ability to sense other things and the sixth sense, and that there's something beyond our 5 physical senses that we can tell. But a school of thought that I came across quite a few years ago that has really helped me in my life is, and I've said this before, I've said this many times, but there is nothing outside of myself. So if I want to truly be a cause, then there's nothing outside of me. So what I'm seeing is a reflection of what's coming, what I'm projecting out. And so that came as somebody said something about somebody else projecting negativity onto us. But I liked what Habiba said is that question, is that me or is it not me? So that's not to say that there's nothing outside of myself. Of course there is, but in thinking of it in this way, and truly being a cause for what's happening, when I walk into the room and I sense that other people aren't, maybe, am I projecting that on them? Is that something I'm projecting on them, or am I sensing their response to what I'm projecting to the room as I come in? An example that I used when I was in high school, my brother used to get into all these random scraps in a 7-Eleven, not full-on fights, but at least these encounters where people would kind of they'd push back at him, or they'd give him attitude. And once he was on a bridge and these guys gave him a hard time and so on, that sort of thing never happened to me. And a lot of it was about the attitude that he was putting out to the world. So those same people would walk by me and not even notice me. But because my brother had a screw you attitude towards the world, the people that thought screw you were, well, he's the guy that they're going to sense. And if you think of animals, I mean, I've been 60 feet from a cougar out in the wild. That animal has the potential to think of me as prey or as an aggressor. So it's either going to fight with me or it's going to eat me, or it looks at me with curiosity and wanders off. And again, it's about what I project. And, with dogs, I've seen people who are the strongest men's men who have been terrified by a dog that I can walk up to totally fine. Again, what am I projecting out, and what is that animal responding to, right? So there's that piece of what am I projecting, and then what's being reflected back to me. So, that's been good for me. And I've found in my career a couple of times where I've encountered people that we were at odds, and a couple of conversations that really helped prove that to me. And one in particular, this guy came up to me, and him and I had not got along, and I didn't understand what he had against me. And he came up to me, and he was brave enough to do this. He said, "Wayne, I don't think you treat me the same as everybody else. I think you single me out. I think you pick on me." I was like, "Really? Like, how did that come? I thought I treated everybody fairly." And so in having this conversation, we actually changed our relationship quite substantially. So this guy who I thought had something against me, and there was some sort of, he was aggro or whatever was wrong with him, that was coming back at me. It turns out that he had something coming from me that he was responding to. And so when we talked through that and worked that out, we actually became great advocates and became great friends. And I still occasionally touch base with him from time to time since that time. But we could have gone, man, I can't work with that guy. But part of it was whatever was coming from me that he was responding to. So I just wanted to put that out there. And again, thank you so much for all that you bring and that you share with us.
Thank you. Thanks, Wayne. I love that question. What are we projecting out? It's one that I'll add to the toolbox. Okay, so we have Cyril, Glenn, Therese, and we'll end with Virginia in interest of time because we're on the hour already. So go for it, Cyril.
Hi guys. Hi Ego. Well done. Great topic. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Cool. I've struggled with this area for years, internal, external. The big one being internal. And I've found different ways to manage certain aspects of it, and some things work well for certain things, and other things you just have to keep going on. I mean, to be honest, I kind of call it mind management, because there are some things that the mind does to you that are the way you approach it, like the if question. If you don't answer an if question, then actually you're giving your unconscious mind the room to start finding all sorts of negative stuff. So answer the if questions with brainstorming. Is brainstorming how you might deal with it is a great way to kind of suppress that one. But it's I must admit, the one I struggle most with is the limiting beliefs, because I only usually, it takes me a while to catch myself before I realized that I've again just lost myself under a limiting belief. I mean, actually, the one that I was just thinking about today was the I have no money. Which kind of just keeps coming up, and as much as I know, then if I'm not thinking in the right way, it'll just come up, and I'll accept it for some silly reason because I haven't thought it out and I haven't asked the question. Although on other things, I often ask the question, "Is that really true?" You know, which I think is also another useful one to do anyway when you can catch yourself. But yeah, the idea that there are other ways to do things if you open your mind to it is a really useful one, but it's about catching yourself, and that can be really difficult. I must admit, on the aspect of external friends and stuff, to be honest, I started dealing with that a long time ago. I've had this habit: if people have a particularly negative mindset, I tend to just avoid them. Really, I've done it for years, and I know, and partly that I know because a lot of my stuff comes from low self-esteem. You know, I'm from a very poor family, and I had really bad eczema that, although I'm basically in control of, it had really massive effects on how I saw people see me. And then also the fact, because I'm black, then that's this thing about, I know, and I used to be around in environments where I was maybe one of the few black people for a long time. So you have the idea of feeling a room not quite in your favor. Yeah, I've been there too often. Although I tend not, it tends that usually that actually happened more in childhood. As an adult, I very rarely find that. Thankfully, but also I think yes. Although, you know, a few of my friends occasionally start giving me limiting beliefs, but, you know, they're good friends, and it's their limiting belief they're putting on me. So I usually think past it, and I kind of smile and think, oh, okay. It's kind of, I know that one's not, I'm not going to take that one on. It's yours. I'll let you, but you know, I know you're giving it kindly, the advice. So, you know, so I accept it and move on. So, I think friends, when they try and do you a favor, you know, you kind of, I like to kind of find something to help them out and maybe try and take them off that, but I may not do it at that current moment because I know because it's probably not going to work anyway. So I don't know that I've got much more to say than that, but it's, yes, the struggling with limiting beliefs and internal dialogue. Although I must admit, one of the biggest benefits was meditating on I have a positive mental attitude in my affirmation. That actually turned me around the most, and I have way less negativity because I did so much work on it. So that at least was helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Cyril. Yeah, I love the you know, the meditation and the affirmation as well, right? So you know, kind of repeating those positive words to ourselves can hopefully, you know, like change the game. Glenn.
Ego. Great subject. I'm kind of like you, Stuart. I love this topic. In the interest of time, I will speak fast. Okay. First of all, as an old mentor of mine, it taught me, advised me, anytime I have a belief that limits me, anytime I have a negative thought, anytime I have a self-critical thought, it taught me to ask myself this question: who told you that? And that's the question that I love to share with people when I'm coaching people, that friends or people in my business group that are having struggle, that are dealing with some sort of negative emotion or limiting belief. Who told you that? Well, it was my dad. Okay. And what do you think he meant by that? Whatever it is. Do you believe that what your dad told you 30 years ago or whatever is continuing to serve you today? As an example of that. So who told you that? And sometimes, and very often, we can get to the motivations of the person who said it, why they said it, and why I do not need to take it on for myself. Okay, so that's just the one thing. Ego, you've given me a great idea, absolutely phenomenal idea. Tomorrow morning, when I'm hosting, I'm going to share a technique, a process that was taught to me by my friend Gil McIff, that when practiced regularly and with an open mind and in the knowledge that it can work, this is a process that can help us to release any and all negative emotion, release any and all self-criticism, limiting beliefs. It won't happen overnight. Nothing ever does except sleep. So, but please be ready with a notebook tomorrow. Also, this evening, John, you please feel free to drop it into the notes. The title of our networking magic conversation tonight: what Tony Stark can teach us about relationship marketing.
Awesome. Thank you.
I am.
Thank you, Glenn. Cheers.
Thank you, Ego. Back to you.
Thank you. So quickly to Therese, and then we'll finish off with Virginia. Therese?
Oh, hi, everyone. Again, it's been said many times, but again, a very powerful, inspiring, uplifting talk today, something I definitely need. I have some big goals to achieve, and this is exactly the way to start my morning. So thank you. Limiting beliefs, of course, are right in my wheelhouse. Having a bit of a, extremely sensitive, intuitive to other people, the way Star spoke of, a little bit of Cyril's commentary about the self-esteem, etc., certainly are tucked into my mass, my gray matter. And every single day I'm fighting the commentary. So I really love the question, and I can't remember now, it was Byron Katie, and I can't remember who brought that to our attention. I think that was Habiba.
Habiba.
Yeah, so asking that question, is it true? I think is going to be really powerful for me. I know I've been using this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which is amazing. Like the minute something comes in, it's like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, I'm trying to like get it out. But I think, is it true? And then hearing myself ask the question and answer it, and again, whose voice is that? When that always works well for me. And I really do love Wayne's comment about, it's not in relation to removing the negative, but it's about how you're projecting yourself. So I would say, since I joined this group, I was kind of in a really protective, closed place. I was in a survival mode, and I exodused after my yoga teacher training, and I went to this little tiny town in Alaska. It felt like there was so much coming at me, like, gunfire, life gunfire, if you will, for like 5 years. And I just didn't have the right boundaries in place to protect myself, I think. And, in retrospect, it was life moving me out of, or the universe moving me out of a place I wasn't supposed to be anymore. And I was fighting it. So I just got really burnt out, and I exodus to this really pristine, tiny little place with, 300 population in the middle of winter, and it was iced over and bitter cold, and the most amazing experience I've ever had. So you may have noticed in the Facebook chat, I had posted a few photos from that experience, and it was truly one of my favorite quotes is, you know, in the midst of winter, I found in me an invincible summer. And so I came back and I found this group, and definitely like what you're projecting was huge, because I was, you know, I had like this stop on me, and all of a sudden I started to open up, and the universe started to answer, and this group has just evolved, and I've evolved, and all these light bulbs have gone on. And so, yeah, I like that. Thanks, Wayne. I'm going to ask myself that every day. What are you projecting? And just one last thing. I have a friend that, it's funny, I call her a friend. I've known her for quite some time. And, you know, after being on the road for so many years, after my divorce, I don't really have a lot of close friends here. I have what I used to call my weekend friends. I'd travel for 2 weeks at a time. I'd come home, and I had a very dear friend, gentleman friend, and his big group of friends. You know, it's a gay population, and they're my guys, right? They're my girlfriends. And so I hadn't really made a lot of great close girlfriends, if you will. And so this friend is very, I think, threatened by me in a lot of ways, but I still love her. And I just find it interesting that time after time after time after time, she tries to axe me with words and actions. And I'm going to really evaluate that. I think, I mean, of course, everyone's made a comment about that, but Cyril in particular. And, you know, I feel like after I got back from Alaska, I was much better at putting up a boundary around her. But I have to ask myself, like, is it time to just let that relationship go by the wayside? And be okay with just being on your own. I mean, I could be with all of you multiple times in the day, and it's, you know. So anyway, that's what I'm thinking about. I've got work to do, and I appreciate everyone's.
Thank you. Thanks, Ruth.
Thanks.
You know, I think a number of people have left us with a few tools, you know, by way of questions. So I definitely will be adopting those. So last, we have Virginia, and then I'll turn it back over to John.
But not least, right?
Yes.
Okay, very quickly, I have had my photo off most of the time because I am sitting here working, and that's very distracting to everyone. So now you have my total attention. I have been listening. I would like to just briefly say, Wayne, what you are talked about on your projecting. It reminded me of a quote I have up here from Brennan Manning from his book, Abba's Child. I had put that in comments, I don't know, a few weeks ago, but just as a reminder, in every encounter, we either give life or we drain it. There is no neutral exchange. So yes, just as we're interacting in a room, even if we're silent and not saying anything, we're either giving life or draining life. And the other thing I wanted to mention that helps me quite a bit, and I don't know who to credit this percentages of people who like you. I don't know really who initiated this, but it's a 25% times 4 rule, basically. So if you just kind of remember that on one end of the spectrum, you're going to have 25% of the people you encounter are going to like you, and they always will. Doesn't matter what you do, they're going to like you. The opposite end, you're going to have 25% of the people who do not like you, and it doesn't matter what you do, you are never going to change their mind, okay? So in between, you've got 50% that can kind of be doing this. 25% of them will like you, but they might be persuaded not to like you down the road based on interactions, comments, whatever. And then those that start out really not liking you all that well, they could actually, that 25% could be persuaded to like you. So I kind of think, okay, well, 50% of the people like me, and the others I don't have to worry about. You know, is this someone that I'm trying to win over, that I am trying to make them see why I'm such a valuable person, and I might as well just be beating my head against the wall? It's not worth my time. And I learned from T. Harv Eker in Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, which I was able to, in Florida, attend his on-site Miracle Mind weekends. Fantastic. just say to your brain when you have a negative thought, thank you for sharing.
Love it.
That's it. Goodbye. Thank you for sharing. I don't have time for that. So that's all I wanted to interject. And I also do want to thank this video call that we do, because it forces me to keep my little makeup bag on my desk and put on some lipstick and mascara so that I actually get dressed every day.
Yeah, thank you, Virginia. Thank you. Thank you so much for your contribution. Before I hand over to John, I'd say, just kind of based on what you said, Virginia, I would say we just have to be intentional about being authentic. Just be authentic. Like you said, those who would like you, and those who don't. And it's not really about that. It's about us being our authentic selves. On that note, I will hand back to John.
Oh, okay. Well, I will just acknowledge you. How brilliant is Ego? Let's hear for Ego in the chat. She is just amazing. And thank you for all the wisdom that you bring here to the group. Unlike Virginia, I don't get dressed every day. All you get to see is my shirt, but you don't know what it is. I'm joking. Anyway, thank you all. By the way, quick announcement. I know I mentioned the other activities that are happening this evening. Wednesday's our biggest day, but also tomorrow, 12 noon UK time, Thursday, Ego is doing a tech tips or tech talk. Should be what, Ego, half hour or so, or
30 minutes at noon.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So, and that's going to be on, business, technology, and stuff like that. So if you're in the UK or 7 a.m. Eastern time, 4 o'clock in the morning for me, feel free to tune in to that as well. Anyway, huge day. I will see you all real soon. Make it a good one. Bye for now.
Bye, Thank you. Thank you, Ego. That was awesome.